Let's talk about Orm Marius in my DC cinematic universe. In my universe, Orm is the firstborn son of the High Queen of Atlantis, Atlana, and her husband at the time, Orvax Marius. After Atlana fled this horrible abusive relationship, she was forced to leave Orm behind because if she had taken him, then his father would not have stopped hunting for them and she never would have been safe. Orvax was a piece of shit, but he wouldn't have abused his son. Orvax was one of the lords of the kingdom of Poseidonus, but he didn't have any claim to the high throne. But he was lucky enough to be married off in a political marriage to the High Queen and then have a son with her. This kid was his father's ticket to power. This kid got spoiled rotten by his dad. Orm looked up to his horrible father. And then the will of the entire kingdom of Atlantis had the head of the royal guard at the time, Vulko, kill Orm's father for a gross abuse of power. This eventually led to Atlana returning to the kingdom, reclaiming her place as the High Queen of Atlantis, and her trying to repair her relationship with her son, who she had abandoned for 2 years. They wouldn't have the greatest relationship for the rest of their lives because of this, but Orm didn't really hate his mother until he found out that when she left, she had the audacity to mate with a human. If Orvax passed anything on to this kid, it was a violent hatred of the surface world. And after this kid learns that while his mother was gone, she mated with a human and had a half-human bastard, it disgusted him to his very core. He needed that dead. He needed it never to have happened. And so, using his power as the High Prince, he found a group of people to go assassinate his brother and his father. But you all know how that went. It failed. Thomas was killed and Arthur was brought back to the kingdom alive. And while that did piss Orm off, he realized he now couldn't kill his brother because too many eyes were on him. When this was just a deal with killing a bastard who lived up on the surface, no problem. But now that bastard lived down the hall from him. Much harder to assassinate. And so instead, Orm just resigned himself to one day become the High King. His younger brother had no rightful claim to the throne as he was the second born, so that was fine. And the kingdom of Atlantis seemed to dislike his younger brother because his younger brother was a bastard of unknown origin. This was a win-win for him. So Orm stomached his bigotry and let his brother live in the kingdom. And over the decades of growing up next to Arthur, this dude was getting ready to be handed the high throne of Atlantis. And so he got married and had a daughter. In my universe, Orm's daughter is Tula Marius. Tula is a character many of you might recognize from the comics. She has sometimes gone by the alias of Aquagirl and been the sidekick to Aquaman. And fun fact, most of the time in the comics, she is actually Orm's half-sister. His dad had a second kid with another woman, and it was her. But that woman's never been named. Tula's backstory has never been fully fleshed out. So I decided this is so much better if she is the daughter to Orm. And after he is imprisoned by the surface world for starting a war with him and he kills his own mother and he tries to kill his brother, she kind of ends up getting raised by Aquaman. And now you might be wondering, well, who would marry this guy? Who would be the mother to Tula in this universe? Well, don't worry, because I dug through the DC archives and I ended up finding this character, Lori Lamaris. Lori is an Atlantean who ran into Superman. She had a crazy, evil, abusive husband who went crazy and attacked the surface world, and so she had to go to Superman to get help to stop him. So in my universe, her crazy, abusive husband just happens to be Orm. But if you've noticed, this mermaid has brown hair and Orm typically has black hair, but Tula always has red hair. So naturally her mom would have to have red hair. So I scoured the internet to find a reference photo for a redheaded mermaid. So there you go. That's Lori Lamaris. This is my OC, don't steal. And anywho, that's going to make for a fun dynamic for her in all of the subsequent movies. And then we know the rest of the deal. This dude gets imprisoned by humanity. He gets recruited by Vandal Savage to join the Legion of Doom. He's disguised as his brother. He floods Central City to frame Atlantis, start a whole thing over again, and then he gets his shit kicked in by the Justice League and he gets thrown in an even deeper pit. In my mind, this dude gets thrown into a hole so deep, like imagine Belle Rev Penitentiary, but a Belle Rev Penitentiary in the middle of like the New Mexico desert. This dude gets landlocked and never sees the ocean again. We don't see this motherfucker again until my third Justice League movie, where this guy kneels to Darkseid.